Or some of the discussions. Yeah, right. This is a nice movie that people
my
enjoy.
parents will love this one. You might recognise when I'm sitting next to a friend that's met my parents before. My parents are in this movie.
Really?
My mum will never watch this movie, but she's in it.
Okay.
My mum and dad are some of the creepy spectators up the top. Yeah, and my cousin Ian also, which is kind of, he loves it. My mum, I'm not sure so much, but you know, when I first sort of got on board with this project, it was started off as a short film. The concept was a short film, and it started. So Rachel Nichols' character Jamie was the lead, and it was sort of, you followed her through her office life and the fact that she was like a loser. Clearly, when you're as ugly as she is, you can't get a date. But whatever, it's Hollywood apparently. So she was bad at dating, and her friend set her up on this blind date, which is the guy that we all figure out at the end, and. She goes on this great date, and it's all lovely, and then the bath scene happens, which sounds so much more raunchy than it is, like the bath scene. She just gets tasered, that's all there is to it. And she wakes up in this creepy place, and then she meets Sabrina, and she loses, and that's the end of the short. So when I first got involved, it wasn't about the acting. And I was a little bit like, they kind of approached me about being a coordinator, and I was like, it's not really where I want to go, but I like you guys, and the concept's kind of interesting. And they were like, what about as a producer? And I went, yep, totally, I'm in. Yes, please. And then as we were shooting the short, it sort of progressed into becoming the feature that it is now. So I already created Sabrina for the short. So then when we went into making the feature, it's not like I read this feature script and went, oh yeah, that's harmless, I'll do that. I'm just as guilty as everybody else, because I was definitely involved in the creating of this craziness, so you're welcome.
So what was it like working, I mean, I think there are about 17 fight scenes, so what was it like working out the variation? It's like not, I could watch more. It's I mean, there's so much variation, and it's so interesting, each of the fights, but how did you sort of, you know, I would love to hear what the discussions were like. Yeah, because you're in you know, you're in this enclosed setting, so just the way you use that space and use the elevator for that fight.
Yeah, it was a really conscious. Actually, the elevator was not. There's a lot of happy mistakes. In this movie, based on, you know, whoops, we didn't do this, or whoops, we've already pulled down that set, we can't afford to build it again. So, you know, those sorts of things. Or like with the elevator fight, we were like, oh, we don't have time to get the whole crew in there and this and that, and we were halfway, and I was standing in the elevator opposite Amy going, this woman wants to fight me, I can feel it. Like, why wouldn't we fight already? Like, if she's going to be cracking her nails and looking me up and down, like, what, bitch? I'll be like, let's go. And I was like, why don't we just do it here? And they're like, that's great, and the red elevator, and, you know, so we re-choreographed that fight. Now, she's a stunt performer as well. So we were sort of enabled the luxury of changing the choreography and both of us being able to pick it up and turn it around really quickly. But keeping the fights interesting was a massive challenge, because we're all in the same costumes. They all, aside from the elevator fight, take place in the same arena, and the arena's tiny and there's no variance to any of it. And so it really came down to, and this is where the discussions came into play before we even started shooting, was we were trying to avoid, you know, the typical tournament fight, not for any reason. I mean, I love Street Fighter, you know, but we didn't want it to be ninja versus samurai and nunchucks versus the stuff, and you know. Now I'm like, I kind of want to do one of those.
That sounds like the video game that you're describing.
You know, sorry, I'm nerd reference.
Which everybody got.
Yeah, I know. But it was one of those things that was, one of the things we wanted to do was to keep it from being that type of movie. Yeah. Which meant that we still know it's a movie, and we need to keep you guys interested if possible and not bored. So it really came down to involving the actors and figuring out exactly who these characters are, and the style of fight that each of them had was born from their characters.
Right.
So Cody, like, when in a fight movie do you ever see anyone's fight stance like this? Like, it just doesn't happen. No, you know, no self-respecting coordinator goes, that's great. Keep your elbows out like that. That works. You know, everyone's like, no, get your elbows in, hands up. It's, you know. But we were like, her life has taught her that that's how she scraps, that's how she survives, that's how she fights.
Well, what's really interesting is that there really is this mix of acting and action, and that's unusual, I would think, because you know, stunt work is, I guess, not that I know, but it's one type of work, and
that reviewers done that.
right, yeah, right. I gave that up for museum film program. Yeah, but what is it like? I mean, because the acting scenes, like you really have to believe that Sabrina, you sort of see this emotional journey, you know, that she doesn't want to be killing all these people, but she knows she has to, and so the way her feelings evolve. So how was that task like for you to sort of do both, go back and forth?
Massive for me. I mean, the acting thing is, you know, I've been doing it now for a couple of years, but it's still